Please be seated. And to our friends in the back, there are some seats up here. So if you'd like to have a seat, feel free to make yourself comfortable. Good morning. My name is Jamie Caridi. I have the privilege of serving as president of Bethany College. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our annual Founders Day convocation here in historic Commencement Hall. We are grateful to gather together as a community to celebrate Bethany's mission and purpose. To the members of our board, thank you. Thank you for your leadership and for investing so generously in this beautiful, special place. To the families with us today, thank you for believing in the education that Bethany provides your sons and daughters. And to our faculty, our students, and our staff, thank you. Thank you for making this college what it is, a place where engaged learning and lasting connections truly flourish. I also want to extend a special and warm welcome to Dr. Kristine Culp, Dean of the Disciples of Divinity House at the University of Chicago. I'll give her a more formal introduction later, but Doctor, thank you for being with us today. Places and spaces have always mattered at Bethany, and this hall is no exception. For generations, students, faculty, families, and friends have gathered here to reflect upon our shared purpose, and that is to educate effective, honorable, and humane citizens. Today, that purpose is especially visible in the class of 2026, seated right before us. Moments ago, they had the opportunity to process together past Old Main and into this hall, which continues a powerful tradition that reminds us of the importance of community and belonging. And it gives us a preview that your commencement is just around the bend. So congratulations to our class of 2026. We are proud of you. Of course, we're proud not only of your accomplishments, but for your commitment to learning, to one another, and to creating a world of worth and value for others. On a day dedicated to our founding, I often find myself wondering what Alexander Campbell might think if he could see Bethany College today. As a preacher and reformer who debated some of the leading theologians of the 19th century, Reverend Campbell was not someone known for, frankly, remaining quiet. Yet I suspect that if he were able to stand here again and survey this remarkable campus and this remarkable group of people, he might, frankly, for a moment, be speechless. He would see a vision that has endured. He would see faculty and students engage deeply in the life of the mind, in classrooms, in labs, and conversations that stretch our understanding of the world. He would see students presenting research, studying abroad, serving their communities, and competing with pride as student athletes. And I frankly believe he would see something else, something less visible, but just as essential. He would see courage. The courage to remain grounded in the values upon which the institution was founded nearly 2 centuries ago. The courage to be a community shaped by faith, learning, and commitment to the common good. And the courage to believe that education should not only prepare students for careers, but also shape citizens who contribute meaningfully to society. In a world that often feels divided and uncertain, Bethany continues to stand as a place where learning, faith, and community come together in the form of purpose. That vision began in 1840 when Reverend Campbell established this college for, quote, the instruction of youth in the various branches of science and literature, the useful arts, and the learned and foreign languages, end quote. Now, nearly 2 centuries later, that mission continues to guide us as we challenge students to think critically, to act ethically, to serve others, and to move ideas into action. And so on this Founders Day, we celebrate not only our past, but the responsibility we share for Bethany's future. and for the generations of students who will pass through these gates in the years to come. Thank you. Thank you for being part of this remarkable community. And with that, it is now my pleasure to invite Stella Trullinger to offer the invocation for today's convocation. Stella?
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know what an invocation is, it's a form of prayer. So whatever way you feel you're most comfortable praying is the position I would ask you to assume now. Gracious and eternal God, we gather in gratitude for the vision and faith that gave rise to Bethany College. We remember the courage of Alexander Campbell, who sought to build a place where learning and faith could walk hand in hand, where minds could be sharpened, hearts formed in charity, and truth pursued with humility. Bless this legacy of inquiry and devotion. May the founding spirit of Bethany, rooted in the love of wisdom, the pursuit of unity, and the freedom to seek understanding, continue to inspire all who learn and teach in its halls. As Campbell believed that education should serve both the church and the wider world, grant that this calling may still guide the work begun so long ago. Give us grateful hearts for those who laid these foundations, steadfast minds to carry their vision forward, and generous spirits that welcome knowledge wherever it leads. May this community remain a light of learning, faith, and service for generations yet to come. We offer this prayer with thanksgiving for the past, dedication in the present, and hope for the future. Amen.
Please rise. Please be seated.
On behalf of Bethany College, it is my honor to announce the establishment of a new award, the John U. Davis and Mary Ann S. Davis Educational Advancement Award. This award embodies the core values of excellence, innovation, collaboration, and sustainability in advancing the mission of Bethany College. It is especially fitting that we introduce this award with the help of someone who embodies those very qualities. A 1978 graduate of Bethany College and a dedicated member of Beta Theta Pi, Scott Thompson has remained deeply committed to this institution and its traditions. At this time, it is my pleasure to invite Scott Thompson to come forward and announce the first recipient of the John U. Davis and Mary Ann S. Davis Educational Advancement Award. Scott.
Good morning. It's great to be here. when I was here, there was 2 stories here, 2 floors, so it's nice to see the way it is today and how beautiful it is. My name is Scott Thompson. I attended Bethany from 1974 to 1978, and am a member of the Beta Theta Pi fraternity here on campus. I currently serve as one of 5 directors on what's called the Beta Theta Pi Charitable Foundation. The foundation was established in the late 70s. It collects donations from the Beta alumni, which we then distribute to various institutions and use to provide academic scholarship opportunities for current Betas on campus. Some of the recipients of the donations from this foundation include the Bethany Church, the Bethany Fire Department, the town of Bethany. Since 2008, the Charitable Foundation has contributed more than $2 million to Bethany College's general fund. It is because of Betas like J.U. Davis, who we're here to represent today, that this fund exists. It's a privilege to be a steward of these assets, and we take responsibility for those assets very seriously. So why am I here today? Why was I asked to present this award? In 2014, following the passing of J.U. Davis, a Bethany grad, a legendary Bethany professor, and an active member of Beta Theta Pi, I had the privilege of participating in discussions about how the Beta Foundation and the fraternity might honor John's legacy. Dean Lesiak, David Coddington, Bob McKenzie, and Doug Selwyn were all party to these conversations. During one of the meetings, Brother Selwyn said, "How can we best remember J.U. Davis?" His next words resonated with all of us. J.U. is a great professor, and there aren't many truly great professors. And then he added that great professors make for great students. Let's reward current faculty so they too can continue to grow and be great professors. That day, the foundation, the Charitable Foundation of Beta Theta Pi, committed to donating $3,000 each year to the Education Department, JU's department, to support continuing education. JU's daughters, Beth Jacks and Martha Mitchell, were honored and moved by the gesture. They decided to join us in honoring both their father and their mother, Mary Ann. Together, the Beta Theta Pi Charitable Foundation, along with generous contributions from Beth and Martha, established a permanent endowment with Bethany College in honor of J.U., John U., and Mary Ann Davis. The distributions from this endowment support the award that we are presenting today and will serve as a lasting tribute to the Davis' family commitment to excellence in education at Bethany College. On behalf of all the brothers of Beta Theta Pi, all the students that John and Mary Ann influenced, the Davis family, it's my honor to introduce the John and Mary Ann Davis Educational Advancement Award, the first of its kind. This annual award recognizes Bethany College employees who demonstrate dedication to educational advancement, professional growth, and the overall success of the Bethany community. The recipient of this award was and will be selected by the Bethany College Honors Committee. So I had nothing to do with, if you're mad that you didn't get the award, it's not my fault. This award carries with it the proud legacy of John and Mary Ann Davis. John grew up in Indiana, PA. He served his country in the Korean conflict in Japan, and after earning his BA from Bethany College in 1956, returned a decade later as a professor of education. He was an active member of Beta Theta Pi. He had received the Richard B. Kenny Coin of Excellence for outstanding service to Beta and Bethany, and for anybody in this room who knew who Richard B. Kenny was, see me afterwards, a special, special human being. John encouraged students to seek knowledge independently, affirmed their creativity, and guided them with mentorship that lasted long after graduation. His modest response to praise was always, "I did what I do," but in truth, he did much more. Mary Ann, maiden name Strickrath, met John here at Bethany. She was a Zeta, and both she and John were education majors, graduating together. Mary Ann was dedicated to teaching, as well as worked in the Bethany College psychology department, as well as teaching first grade at Bethany Elementary for 20 years. Together for 57 years, John and Mary Ann embodied the values of lifelong learning, service, and personal growth. So today we honor the legacy by recognizing the first recipient of this award, Casey Mobley. Casey is the chairperson of the Political Science and History Department and will be receiving a $3,000 award to support her program, Unplugged, Practicing Screen-Free Leisure, and we look forward to seeing the results of her work. Through this award, the spirit of John and Mary Ann Davis will continue to inspire the Bethany College family. Today, we celebrate not only Casey Mobley, but also the enduring commitment to growth, mentorship, and community that John and Mary Ann exemplified. Congratulations. Thank you.
The word grace, one definition of grace is the Holy Spirit dwelling within us. In my heavens, the Holy Spirit just flowed out of you. So once again, thank you to our choir. It's a prayer to heaven. I also want to thank you, Scott, for your wonderful presentation of the John and Marion Davis Award. And Casey, congratulations. I want to recognize Beth, John and Marion's daughter, who's with us today. Beth, would you please stand? Thank you. It is now my honor to provide a more formal introduction of Dr. Kristine A. Culp, our distinguished keynote speaker. For our annual Founders Day convocation, we seek out pioneering voices and leading scholars who embrace what Bethany College was founded upon. We have found such a voice and such a leader in Dr. Culp, who seeks to forward theology's diagnostic and constructive contributions to knowledge and to life. As Dean of the Disciple Divinity School at the University of Chicago and widely known in her field, Dr. Culp also spends time critically examining the ways some theological constructions have functioned, focusing on topics or even symbols that lie at the intersection of theology and ethics. A member of the Faith and Order Commission of the World Council of Churches, Dr. Culp earned her bachelor's degree in general studies with distinction from the University of Iowa, her Master of Divinity from the Princeton Theological Seminary, and her PhD from the University of Chicago Divinity School. She is the author of Vulnerability and Glory, a Theological Account, as well as the editor of The Responsibility of the Church for Society and other essays by H. Richard Niebuhr. In addition to penning introductions, multiple chapters, essays, and other published works, Dr. Culp is now working on a new book project with her working title, Aliveness of Life, a meditation on the glory of living and made things. The book explores the theological reflections on finite glory and the transformation of earthly life, including engagement with gastronomy, gardening, and abstract expressionism. The project was developed as part of the Enhancing Life project at the University of Chicago in collaboration with Ruhr University Bochum, Germany, and supported with a grant from the John Templeton Foundation. I've had the opportunity to engage with Dr. Culp personally, and I am confident that her words today will beautifully show us the power of the liberal arts in one's life. Join me in welcoming Dr. Kristine Culp.
President Caridi, students, trustees, alumni and alumnae, special guests, it is my honor to join you today to celebrate the 186th anniversary of the founding of Bethany College and to commemorate the 160th death of Alexander Campbell. I want to say a special word of thanks to Arthur Keyes for extending not only the invitation to be here, but also his gracious help and welcome. I bring you warm wishes from Tamara Nichols-Rodenberg, formerly of Bethany, and I bring you greetings from the Disciples Divinity House and the Divinity School of the University of Chicago. Although I am not a Bethanian by diploma and degree, it is not too much of a stretch to claim something of this Founders Day as my own. As a lifelong disciple whose life and vocation have been shaped profoundly by disciples' higher and theological education, I am indebted to the educational legacy of Alexander Campbell and this proud school. Some of you here today almost have Bethany College degrees in hand. Shout out to the senior class. I celebrate your achievements. Whether those of us who are gathered this morning are full Bethanians or only by association, or whether we ourselves are members of the Stone Campbell movement, we participate in this legacy. As Alexander Campbell exemplified, we are students, teachers, debaters, interpreters, learners. We are lifelong, lowercase d, disciples. Call to mind, if you will, an image of Alexander Campbell, perhaps one on a bronze plaque here on campus, or a likeness from a painting or photograph. Those remarkable eyebrows, broad forehead above them, anchored and surrounded by thick hair, a firm chin, or perhaps late in his 77 years, a beard. One such likeness of Campbell is at the heart of a poem entitled Alexander Campbell. Did you know there was such a thing? It was written in 1919 by Vachel Lindsay, a well-known poet of his day who traveled the U.S. giving public readings of his work. In the poem, such a portrait hangs on the wall of his grandmother's home, where it is looking down upon a young Vachel and his cousins. They sit on the floor in front of a fire, building pretend houses while their grandmother traces the family tree and recounts the Proverbs of Campbell again to the older generations gathered there. Campbell, he writes, thinking of that portrait, has, quote, the face of age, the flush of youth, and that air of going on, forever free. The poem, written in rhyme, has three parts which begin with Lindsay's own self-reflection and remembrance, move to others' memories, future hopes, and millennial dreams. The poem takes place across several generations and in various settings, including Lindsay's own hometown in Illinois, his grandmother's Kentucky cabin, the forest by the Daniel Boone Trail, woods held sacred to Native people, and outside the Brush Run Church. Lindsay was known for his commitment to poetry as performance. Relatedly, he was interested in the recent phenomena of talking movies. He even wrote a book about those. This three-part poem performance flickers across the page like one of those early moving pictures. It performs Alexander Campbell going on forever free. It's not so much the historical Campbell that the poem conveys, but rather the history of Campbell's effects, how his preaching and teaching have been received and passed on, how they animate our lives today. Campbell's significance echoes across the countryside, and it gives birth to dreams and action. The main section of Lindsay's poem is entitled A Rhymed Address to All Renegade Campbellites, exhorting them to return. To gather on Founders Day is a kind of returning. We can pinpoint the founding of a college to a particular place and time, March 2nd, 1840, and mark the end of Campbell's own life with his date of death. But a college and a life are much more than beginnings and endings. They are how we go on from there. My topic today is freedom. What is it that we rely on from our ancestors and bring forward as necessary in our own challenging and complicated times? How do we go on in freedom in times that are rapidly changing, filled with many voices and ambiguous? I begin with some well-known ways in which Alexander Campbell is associated with religious freedom. Next, I will invite you to think with me more generally about how freedom goes on and about how we humans might go on in freedom. Through this, I reflect on 3 forms of freedom. So some beginning points. 1, freedom is an irreplaceable element in Campbell's legacy of learning. The goals articulated for Bethany College from its founding in 1840 figure education as a kind of liberation, a certain kind necessary for public life and the common good. According to the college's website, Campbell set the purpose of Bethany College to prepare students to become useful and responsible members of society by liberating them from superstition and ignorance, the tyranny of others, and vulgar prejudices. That this euphemism, vulgar prejudices, is published with quote marks. There's a whiff of elitism here, an appeal to an education that will allow one to rise above the masses of superstition and ignorance. And perhaps there's a trace of a coded anti-Catholicism here as well. Yet, Campbell came to fight for education that was broad, rigorous, and publicly accessible. He didn't take education for granted, and neither should we. 2, freedom is alive in the documents that call the Stone Campbell movement into being. The Last Will and Testament of Springfield Presbytery, isn't that a name for a founding document? It bequeaths the hope that the oppressed may go free and taste the sweets of gospel liberty. Thomas Campbell's 1809 Declaration and Address instructs, quote, resume that precious, dear-bought liberty wherewith Christ has made his people free, a liberty from subjection to any authority but his own in matters of religion. For Alexander Campbell as well, the new democracy provided a powerful impetus and analogy for religious freedom. I want to underscore for a minute this analogical relation of political and civil freedom on the one hand and of religious freedom on the other. The founding disciples declared freedom from religious tyranny and freedom for religious self-determination. The analogy assumes a separation of religious and civic order, something other than triumphalism or sectarianism, while it also assumes relevant similarity across that distinction, so that equity and democracy or freedom and tyranny apply in both orders. 3, freedom and liberty are not only key English language words, they are Bible words. More so, in fact, than many other Stone Campbell words, including unity and restoration. The pathos of human enslavement, bondage, and a flight to freedom, of exile and migration to liberation, is the orienting story of the Hebrew Bible. For Campbell, the words of the New Testament book of Acts and the epistles are orienting, and perhaps no words more precious than those of Paul's letter to the Galatians. Quote, stand fast in the freedom with which Christ has freed us. You have been called into liberty. 4, freedom is an apt topic for the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, if not actually my own motivation for focusing on freedom this morning. In his Forrest Reed lectures for the Disciples of Christ Historical Society in 1976, the bicentennial year, historian Ronald Osborne examined the Disciples of Christ as, quote unquote, an experiment in liberty. He explains that his selection of this motif is not some kind of bicentennial gimmick. Rather, he argued that freedom belonged right alongside unity and restoration in the genesis of the Stone Campbell movement. Osborne took a wide-angle lens on this project. He sampled 150 years of clergy, politicians, social visionaries, and artists, some famous, some infamous, looking at the ideal of freedom in the experience of the disciples. 5, Osborne, in his study, identified anti-clericism, anti-creedalism, and anti-ecclesiasticism as the mechanisms by which the early disciples sought to secure liberty in the church. Osborne referred to these as negative positions that become a powerful symbolic force in the ethos of disciples. In the last 50 years, historians of the Stone Campbell movement have given greater critical attention to this. I urge you to see Joel Brown's latest post on the Disciples' History website, where he nuances and argues for the need to complicate this vision. My own aim in this lecture is neither to update Osborne's bicentennial report, nor to contribute to Campbell historiography, important as that work is. I won't attempt to measure freedom by what Alexander Campbell thought it was in his day, or for that matter, to continue the historical work on how Campbell met or failed to meet the greatest promises and challenge of freedom in his own day. As a theologian, my focus shifts to questions of how freedom appears in the lives we share with others before God. Anti-clericalism, anti-creedalism, and anti-imperialism are deeply familiar expressions of freedom among the Stone Campbell movement. If you know those words, you know they are all but reflex responses, almost instinctual. This instinctual aspect allows us to identify forms of freedom, which is my topic today, you may have noticed. So first, it's the experience of freedom as release, of conscience unbound from a sense of guilt and failure. In that sense, it is a negative form. The constraint is removed, released. We feel constrained, hindered, harmed at the core of our person and community, and know that is not right. We push back. This kind of deeply felt resistance to tyranny over our lives and presumptions upon God is a vital form of freedom in our day. But second in the forms of freedom, if a sense of freedom as negation, freedom from, takes primary place in the disciples' imagination and action, it is accompanied by another form, freedom in things indifferent. To summarize Campbell's teaching, later disciples appropriated a 17th century slogan, in essentials unity, in non-essentials liberty, in all things charity. They partnered this slogan with other catchphrases that indicated what the essentials were. No creed but Christ, no book but the Bible. Where the scriptures speak, we speak. Where the scriptures are silent, we are silent. The Latin word for this free zone of non-essential or things indifferent is adiaphora. It's a great word to roll off one's tongue. Adiaphora. It indicates a potentially enormous free zone that is responsive to the love of God and neighbor and governed by individual or collective conscience, but not by clerics, creeds, or church institutions. The 16th century reformer John Calvin also used this word, adiaphora, tracing it back both to an admonition in the first letter to the Corinthians to live as though not, and to the Stoics, for whom adiaphora were things that are non-essential to virtue, including health, wealth, and fame for them. In the Sermon on the Mount, this zone of freedom extends even further. Don't worry about what you eat or wear. Jesus teaches, consider the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. They soar and grow under the providence and mercy of God in a very large adiaphora zone. Let me draw from and add to the preceding points to offer some generalized observations about the experience of freedom. I am not yet discussing a third form of freedom, freedom for, and its relation to building unity, justice, and love, but you may have a sense that I'm heading there. So first, freedom is often associated with long-term collective movement, either away from a threat, say a flight from tyranny and oppression, or toward a goal, perhaps a land flowing with milk and honey, or wholeness in a fragmented world. In his book, The Movement, The African American Struggle for Civil Rights, historian Thomas C. Holt writes, "Freedom is a prize won not in a single campaign, but in a long struggle waged by a determined and committed people. And ultimately, it is not exceptional leaders, but ordinary people themselves, conscious of the historical possibilities of their movement and acting collectively, who have the capacity to win that fight and change their world." Holt reminds us that freedom is not founded for once and for all, that struggle is ongoing, that it may be won by ordinary people like you and like I, and that it takes commitment and collective action, savvy and persistence. My broader point is that freedom itself is not only associated with particular religious, political, or social movements, but that it is also tied up with the very idea of moving against or moving toward some shared social reality or goal. A second observation: freedom is often associated with arduousness, determination, and the will. It is called sweet or precious, or as Holt says, a prize, to indicate that it may be hard-won and its achievement to be savored. Although freedom of thought and of conscience are important expressions of freedom, freedom itself is not a rational operation. Rather, it is a power, a drive, a striving. And a third observation: freedom is substantial. A thing to be laid hold of and struggled for. It is not a shrug. It is not a willful sense of doing what you please. It is a matter of survival and life, not to be taken for granted. This is how Langston Hughes expressed freedom in a 1949 poem by that name. "I tire so of hearing people say, 'Let things take their course for another day.' I do not need my freedom when I'm dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Freedom is a strong seed planted in great need. I live here too. I want my freedom just as you." And in a poem from 1962 by Robert Hayden, he depicts freedom as this beautiful and terrible thing, needful to man as air, usable as earth, more than the gaudy mumbo-jumbo of politicians. The call to freedom reverberates across the centuries, not only in the power of protest and resistance, not only in opening a zone of adiaphora for exercising the freedom of conscience, but also in its third form, for the positive use of freedom. Historically, this is freedom for the law, as given at the heart of the Hebrew Bible in the Ten Commandments, and summarized by Jesus as the double command to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. That's the first table of the law. And to love your neighbor as yourself, the second table of the law. The positive use of freedom, this third sense, impels us toward God and toward neighbors and strangers. The Gospels present Jesus as the one who makes liberation manifest by welcoming strangers and outcasts, feeding the hungry, healing the sick, visiting the imprisoned, setting the captives free. We might think of the positive form of freedom as freedom for God, for neighbors and strangers, and for the world. Freedom for transformation, freedom for love. Oddly, perhaps, this form of freedom is relatively neglected, even rejected, in significant treatments of Christian freedom. Martin Luther, for instance, doesn't discuss the positive use of the law or positive freedom. John Calvin, however, says that the third use of the law is the primary use. So the positive use of the law is the primary use that shifts our lens from this impulse to resist, to push back, to say that something's wrong, to another step, to say what's right. Who do we love? Why do we love? What does it mean to welcome the stranger? There's a complicated and important story to tell here about the inattention to positive freedom in this whole history of Christianity. It's entangled in Christian supersessionism and anti-Judaism, in interpretations of the law and gospel. Calvin flips the order. He says it's gospel and law, that the gospel sets us free to honor each other, to honor the neighbor. The gospel is not the opposition to the stringency of the law. Calvin and others of us love the law because it tells us something about how to live, how to embrace what it means not only not to kill, but to make alive. I urge us not to forget these three forms of freedom. They require each other. We need a sense of positive freedom to build a world. We need to mobilize the use of negative freedom to denounce tyranny. These forms of freedom require each other. We need to think with and between them, as well as to build contemporary analogies and so new manifestations of freedom. Look around your world and ask, where is freedom unbound for things indifferent? Where does freedom endure and struggle and create new forms of mutual responsibility and love? Freedom calls not for conformity, not in complacency, but with tenacity and generativity. And so in conclusion, friends, renegade Campbellites, to gather on Founders Day is a way of returning. Anniversaries afford the opportunity to renew commitments and to reorient ourselves with the wider, broader, deeper sympathies, convictions, and aspirations to go on. There are vulgar prejudices in every era. Hatred, fear, distortions, phobias that alter and affect our own time. Vachel Lindsay wrote his poem, Alexander Campbell, in 1919, just after World War I had ended and left once bloody trenches of warfare, of brutal warfare, slashed across Northern Europe. Remembrances of blood, loss, and the human potential for brutality would have been in the air. But Lindsay wrote a poem about regeneration and freedom. It takes all the forms of freedom to unlearn and undo the crass and dangerous disregard of God and neighbors. Education can help us learn to recognize the power of implicit biases, of vulgar prejudices, and to distinguish what is unknown or not yet known from willful ignorance and unwilled complicity. Such all too common distortions constrict our consciences and inhibit our regard and care for neighbors and strangers. I exhort you, go on learning, teaching, debating, interpreting. Go on freely.
Friends, receive this blessing. Blessing is kind of like a gift we offer each other, and then we carry it out into the world to share. Will you hold out your hands as if prepared to receive a gift? Go into the world shouting with your lives the self-giving love of peace. Go to see visions and dream dreams of a hopeful future. Go to press the moral arc of the universe to bend ever closer towards justice. Go be free.